They came before sunrise. No sirens, no warning. Tactical vehicles rolling slowly down a quiet residential street in the Catalina foothills of Tucson, Arizona. Armored, armed, moving with the kind of controlled purpose that does not come from hope. It comes from certainty, from a briefing room, from a decision already made. The neighbors saw it first. A woman at her front window, coffee going cold in her hand, watching a SWAT team move into the backyard next door. A man on the sidewalk, dog frozen at his feet, understanding without being told that something had changed, that whatever they had all been waiting and hoping for had shifted into something else entirely. Because that backyard belonged to Nancy Guthrie, 84 years old, a mother, a grandmother, a woman of faith who had dinner with her family on a Saturday night. Y came home, closed her garage door at 9:50 p.m., and was never seen again. For 32 days, the country was told she was out there somewhere, held against her will, a $6 million Bitcoin ransom. Deadlines set, deadlines passed, the FBI deployed, $1 million reward, volunteers driving in from neighboring states, search teams sweeping the Sonoran Desert, a nation holding its breath. And then SWAT arrived, not at a suspect's address, not at a location cracked open by surveillance or a tip. They came back here, to her home, to the house with the yellow crime scene tape and the disabled doorbell camera and the front porch where Nancy Guthrie's own blood had been found the morning she was reported missing. They came back to her backyard, and they did not leave. If you are watching this case for the first time or you have been following it from day one, make sure you are subscribed. Hit that button right now. Every update, every development, every piece of evidence this investigation produces, we cover it the moment it breaks. You do not want to miss what is coming next in this case. Here is what the SWAT deployment means. When a hostage rescue team deploys to bring someone home alive, they move fast. Every second at the target location is a second the situation can collapse. Speed is the doctrine. Speed is the difference between a rescue and a catastrophe. The entire operational design of a federal tactical unit is built around one principle. Go in, get the person, get out. They were not moving fast. They were staying, setting a perimeter. Holding position with this unhurried deliberateness of people who are no longer racing against time because they no longer believe time is the variable that matters. Former CNN Chief Law Enforcement Analyst John Miller, retired NYPD Deputy Commissioner for Intelligence and Counterterrorism, a man who has spent his career reading the gap between what a crime appears to be and what it actually is, had said weeks earlier that whatever type of crime this started as, things began to go wrong very quickly. He was not talking about the investigation. He was talking about what happened at that front door on the night Nancy vanished. Standing here now, watching tactical personnel take up positions in her backyard. Those words carry a weight they did not have when he first said them. This is not what a rescue looks like. This is what a reckoning looks like. 3 pieces of evidence. That is what we are going to walk through. 3 sourced, confirmed, documented pieces that explain not just why SWAT came to this backyard, but what their presence here tells us about what law enforcement now believes happened to Nancy Guthrie. When you see all 3, you will understand why the question the entire country has been asking, is she alive? Is this the rescue? Was never the right question. Here is what the evidence actually shows. The night Nancy disappeared begins with a timeline law enforcement confirmed and released publicly. January 31st, 2026. Dinner with family. Home by 9:48 p.m. Garage door closed at 9:50 p.m. At 1:47 a.m., her Google Nest doorbell camera is physically disabled, not remotely, that's at the device level, by someone already standing at her front door in a mask and gloves who covered the lens first with a gloved hand, then with foliage, before the interaction even began. At 2:12 a.m., a motion sensor detects a person on the property. No footage recorded. Nancy had no active subscription. At 2:28 a.m., her pacemaker disconnects from her cell phone. The cardiac device that had been monitoring her heart rhythm, syncing with her phone, maintaining the electronic record of her life, goes dark. That is the last confirmed electronic trace of Nancy Guthrie anywhere. 41 minutes. from the doorbell going dark to the pacemaker going silent. The next morning, her phone is inside, her purse is inside, her keys are inside. She is not. Sheriff Chris Nanos arrives. Ilway finds her blood at the front door, later confirmed by DNA, and declares it a crime scene. The FBI joins within hours. Then the ransom notes arrive, 2 of them, sent not to the Guthrie family, sent to TMZ and local Arizona news stations. $6 million in Bitcoin. A deadline of February 9th. 8 days. February 5th, the first deadline passes. Silence. February 9th, the second deadline passes. Silence. No third note. No escalation. No contact with the family. Not one word through any channel. FBI Special Agent in Charge Heath Janke confirmed publicly that there had been 0 contact with the Guthrie family since the notes went to media. He said it carefully and clearly. This was unusual in kidnapping cases, and there would normally be contact by now. Both deadlines died without a sound. And then SWAT arrived at Nancy Guthrie's backyard. Now here are the 3 things that tell you exactly what that means. The first, a hostage rescue team built for dynamic entry does not set a perimeter at a residential property and stay there when a living person is waiting to be found somewhere else. Their entire training, their entire operational identity, is built around speed under active threat conditions. Fast in, fast out, minimize exposure. What law enforcement did at Nancy Guthrie's property was the opposite of that. They held position, methodically, without urgency. Former NYPD Deputy Commissioner John Miller had already told the country things went wrong very quickly at that front door. A hostage rescue team that arrives at a property and stays is not running a rescue. The operational calculus has already shifted from rescue to recovery, and the people who gave that order know the difference between those 2 words better than anyone. The second, the SWAT deployment did not come before the ransom deadlines. It came after both of them had already collapsed in silence. After February 5th. After February 9th. After every window the ransom notes had framed with urgency had passed, without a single word from the people who claimed to hold Nancy Guthrie. Former FBI Special Agent Johnny Grusing, 25 years in the Denver field office working exactly these cases, had said from week 1 that the kidnap for ransom theory did not add up because the alleged kidnappers never contacted the Guthrie family directly, and that, in his professional experience, when criminals take someone for money, and they reach out to the family immediately, urgently and repeatedly, because without that contact, there is no leverage and the entire operation has no point. Both deadlines failed, both passed in silence. And into that silence came not a negotiator, not a new communication channel, not any attempt to revive a ransom scenario. Came a SWAT team to her backyard. You do not deploy hostage rescue into a silence that deep unless you already know the silence is permanent. The third, they came back to her property, not to a suspect's address, not to a location generated by new forensic evidence pointing somewhere else. Back to the house in the Catalina foothills, where her blood was on the front porch and her belongings were still on the table where she left them. The origin point. That former FBI Special Agent Greg Rogers told Parade magazine exclusively that he had never believed this was a robbery gone wrong, that professional criminals do not enter occupied homes, that nothing was confirmed stolen, that this was targeted and planned, and something went wrong at the moment of contact. Someone came to that house knowing which camera to cover, knowing the layout, knowing the approach, and weeks later, law enforcement came back to that same property with tactical force. Not to the desert, not to a warehouse. Here, to her yard, to the ground beneath her windows. When law enforcement returns to the origin property with hostage rescue personnel, they are not searching for where someone was taken. They are looking for something that never left. What the backyard knows. 3 pieces. The operational profile of the team. The timing against 2 failed deadlines. The return to the origin property. None of them alone closes the case. All 3 together. Read against the blood on the porch, the 41 minutes, the pacemaker going dark at 2:28 a.m., The ransom notes sent to newsrooms instead of the family, the zero proof of life across 32 days, and the medication window that former Nassau County Police Lieutenant Michael Gould assessed would have closed within 72 hours of Nancy's disappearance. All three together lead to a conclusion that law enforcement appears to have already reached, and it is not the conclusion the country was given on day one. This was not a hostage rescue. This was a reckoning with what the backyard already knew. Here is what the evidence points to. This is a theory built from confirmed facts and the professional analysis of people who have spent their careers inside exactly this type of case. Law enforcement returned to Nancy Guthrie's property with SWAT and hostage rescue personnel because the investigation had pointed them back to where it started, not across the desert, not to a safe house, back here. To the yard behind the house where a masked man spent 41 minutes alone with an 84-year-old woman who needed daily cardiac medication to survive and whose pacemaker went dark before he left. Jim Clemente, former FBI supervisory special agent and behavioral profiler specializing in abductions and violent crimes, said directly that 40 minutes inside a home and crime scene is a very long time, and that no professional would accept that level of exposure unless the situation had already moved beyond the original plan. Greg Rogers said something went wrong at the moment of contact. John Miller said things went wrong very quickly, all of them from different vantage points, arriving at the same place. The ransom notes were not a negotiation. They were a delay, built to keep law enforcement asking, "Where is she?" instead of "What happened to her?" The February 9th deadline was not set because anyone expected $6 million in Bitcoin. It was set because it fell after the window in which Nancy Guthrie, without her medication, without medical care, without a single proof of life through any channel, could have been expected to survive. The deadline was designed to expire after she already had. And when it did, the silence that followed was not a frightened criminal going quiet. It was someone who had no more use for the story they had built. They were not there to bring her home. They were there to bring her back. The DNA from the mixed biological sample recovered inside Nancy Guthrie's home is still being processed at a private laboratory in Florida. The suspect on the doorbell camera, visible eyebrows, mustache, pinky ring, identified by former FBI Special Agent Jennifer Coffender as the single most actionable lead in the case, has not been publicly named. Thousands of hours of Catalina Foothills surveillance footage remain under active review. The investigation is not closed. The next development in this case could come at any hour. If this case matters to you, and if you have watched this far, it does. Subscribe right now and turn on notifications. When this investigation breaks, when the DNA comes back, when that suspect is named, when the next piece of this story surfaces, you will know the moment we do. The link is right there. It takes 3 seconds. If you know something, a name, a vehicle, a conversation you have been turning over since January, the FBI tip line is open around the clock. The reward is $1 million, payable anonymously in cash. The link is in the description below. You do not have to identify yourself. Submit the tip. Let the investigators decide what it means. Nancy Guthrie had dinner with her family on a Saturday night. She came home. Her garage door closed at 9:50 p.m. She had a church service planned for the next morning with a friend. She had a phone on the table and a purse by the door and a life she fully intended to wake up and continue. She was a mother. She was a grandmother. She was a woman of faith who kept her plans and came home when she said she would. She had a backyard, a yard she had looked out at for years through the same windows, in every season, in every light. That yard is now cordoned off with tactical tape while the country finally begins to understand that the story it was told was never the story at all. She deserves the truth. The people responsible have been counting on no one saying that plainly. We just did.